and number 15 on the Season 2 leaderboard, respectively. Round number 5 of action. This should be a pretty fun one.
You talk about this like it's Obs on Aggro's worst matchup, because it is, but at the same time, it's, you know, I still lose to this with Obs on Control sometimes. It's not a walk in the park.
That just goes to show you how good of a deck Obs on Aggro is.
Yeah, I mean, if Todd's on the play and just starts making creatures as early as turn 2, it is hard for Steve to get ahead.
Well, turn 2 is very important. It's an Heir of the Wild, so Todd does have a turn 2 play. Might be the worst of the bunch, but it's better than nothing.
Right. Now, one of the things that does help Steve here is that, well, I was going to say he needs to have a turn 2 answer, be it a Fleece Mane Lion or a Bio Blight or something like that. This is an opportunity for Todd.
Steve just had a Temple of Malady, a little scry action before passing the turn back over to Anderson.
Basically, Obs on decks are very good at trading. Todd's game plan is to get ahead and then trade, whereas Steven's game plan is to trade and then get ahead.
That's an attack for 2. And the passing of the turn, Mann going to draw a card.
Big boon for Steve that Todd didn't just start playing more creatures.
Yeah, no Anafenza there, no Fleece Mane Lion, Rashacha Death Dealer, nothing like that.
Any threat would have been pretty good. It hardly matters what it is.
Just a Temple here for Mann, and now a Fleece Mane Lion. Anderson's going to sacrifice his Windswept Heath.
Yeah, Todd does have a copy of Hero's Downfall, but once again, one thing you know, the mana of Obs on Aggro can be pretty picky at times. He can't actually end step kill this Fleece Mane.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a 3-color deck, and it is a pretty aggressive deck, but yeah, he cannot kill the Fleece Mane with Hero's Downfall. Let's see if he wants to try to do it with Obs on Charm. Nope, he's just going to draw some cards.
That's an interesting approach here from Todd, to use that to draw as opposed to removing the card. Because they have so much overlap in cards, the aggro deck, with the right hand, can take on a control role. But if Todd wants to do that, play the Obs on Charm draw cards game against Steve, he needs to make sure that he is overloaded on answers to Elspeth. Because if they play this card advantage game, Steve can just trump Todd out.
Siege Rhino pre-combat to trigger the Ferocious there on Heir of the Wild. Steve, I think, predictably trades there with his Fleece Mane Lion.
Steve just wants to trade cards as much as possible.
See life total here, 20-15 in favor of Anderson.
The danger here for Steve is Wingmate Rock, and that's why you saw he could have made a Siege Rhino there. That's why we want to see Steve do something like Obs on Charm, then just play a tap land instead, because you just can't let Wingmate Rock get raided.
Here's Thoughtseize. Courser, Siege Rhino, 2 Fleece Mane Lions, 2 Coursers, 2 Fleece Mane Lions, and a Siege Rhino.
This is a pretty decent hand from Steve. Courser's great. The second Lion's probably nothing he's very interested in, but it's likely that he can trade off these resources.
The only real way to poke a hole in this hand is probably just taking the Siege Rhino if you're Todd.
Siege Rhino is certainly the most powerful card. If you had one kill spell, you may just want to try to kill spell your ways through the Coursers. But this is the problem, is that it's very, like I said, those cards in Steve's hand are, it's very easy to make them trade, and it's hard for Todd to stop them from trading.
Well, Todd would just a Temple and a passing of the turn. Left that card on top of his deck, however.
Todd doesn't have very many go-to trump cards outside of Wingmate Rock, and Wingmate Rock is only really a trump if it gets raided. So the fact that Steve doesn't have any kill spells right now is good for Todd, because it means if Todd gets a creature and attacks, he can raid a possible Wingmate Rock. But outside of that, this is what the Obs on Control deck does in the matchup.
Well, Courser revealed Fleece Mane Lion. Temple of Malady came in. That was a draw for Mann that turn. Put the Fleece Mane Lion to the bottom. Gained a life, of course, because of the Courser trigger. But the top card is a dangerous one. It's Elspeth. It's
the plan. Steve wants to just trade until he eventually gains card advantage off Courser. Like the 2 key cards I mentioned were Courser, Crufix, and Elspeth. And this is exactly what Steve wants to do. Each player has the same number of cards in their graveyard. They've traded 3 cards for 3 cards. Now Steve has a Courser going, and he's going to play an Elspeth.
Read the bones, the top card of the deck. If you're Todd, you're crossing your fingers and hoping that the land doesn't come, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, the issue is it's going to come eventually, and it's not like Todd can force the issue of damage very easily right now.
In Todd's hand, he's got quite a few lands over there. He does have a copy of Hero's Downfall in his hand, which can't take care of the Elspeth, but as we know with Elspeth, the damage just may already be done. Yeah. There's Fleece Mane Lion and Courser.
Yeah, and another Courser means that what Steve can do is, first of all, he could throw everything in front of Siege Rhino, but that's kind of risky. He can just take 4 and start gaining 2 off land drops. None of Steve's board has power 4, so he'll be able to play Elspeth, kill Siege Rhino, and just continue with cards like Read the Bones as soon as he hits land 6.
Todd with another Temple here. Steve, no interest in blocking, so it's 21-9 at this point. Hero's Downfall, Mana Confluence, Windswept Teeth are the cards in Anderson's hand. He's going to leave, looks like the card on top past the turn back and hope for no land yet again.
He needs to find a Wingmate Rock. He dodges Elspeth this turn, but he's not going to dodge it again. Steve can read the bones here, and Steve will find land 6 after this read the bones.
Yeah, it seems very unlikely that he would not find it. Siege Rhino is the top card of his deck at this point. Now, read the bones will bring Mann down to 7, but again, if he finds a land, he goes right back up to 9. So,
right. He wants a land bad enough that he may even do something, like if his second card down isn't land, he may scry Siege Rhino to the bottom just because I think he's so far ahead once he gets the land.
Rarely do we see a Siege Rhino get pushed to the bottom, but we might actually see that here. Time to scry for Mann. So Siege Rhino. Todd doesn't get to see the other card. Okay, 2 Siege Rhinos.
Now it's interesting because there's an alternate game plan of ignoring Elspeth and just playing a Siege Rhino every turn, which is pretty appealing. So I think Steve either wants both of these or neither of these.
Yeah, this is a first for me. I actually haven't really seen this game state and this decision have to be made of, do I want either Siege Rhino? Normally it's yes, put these cards directly into my hand. Let's see what the next card is, but it's not that simple right now.
Well, it doesn't beat the things that beat you is the issue. So it still loses to Wingmate Rock, but it's really powerful. I think I want to ship it if I'm Steve. But I respect keeping 2 Siege Rhinos as well. That's a really good pair. He's going to cut the difference. He's going to keep 1.
This is surprisingly difficult. All right, Sandstep Citadel. That's line number 6.
See, now if he'd kept them both, he'd have the Citadel on top, and he would have won. That would have been. That's what you wanted to have happen.
Courser of Crew fixes the top card. Yeah, that's a surprisingly difficult read the bones when they're both Siege Rhinos and you're considering keeping them both, putting them both away, or splitting the difference, and it's very unclear which is right.
The reason I don't like it is that actually Siege Rhino doesn't attack well on this board.
Courser triggers. Man's going to gain some life.
Elspeth's just so good.
Yeah, it really
and
is.
It's so much what matters in this matchup. I mean, he can do something like play another Lion, the next turn Elspeth minus, and he just has a huge amount of damage.
Here come the coursers. Man getting a little aggressive. Curious to know what you guys would do at home. Let us know on Twitter at SCG Live, hashtag SCGDFW, and what you would have done with that Read the Bones. I honestly have no, I would have been in the tank for like 3 minutes. I have no idea what I would have done that turn. A double block.
He's willing to let the 2-for-1 happen to him here. That's fine.
Jamoka's command is interesting. That was Todd's draw for the turn.
Yeah, he can't do better than a 2-for-1 here. Jamoka's is the thing. It only puts the Siege Rhino up to a 5. So downfalling a Fleece Mane looks to be what the easy play here. That does leave him without an answer to Elspeth, though.
Yeah, really, that's tough. Yeah, that's really tough. I mean, Todd can actually kill 3 permanents this turn. Yeah, you see him kind of shaking his head. He is not thrilled with this having to be the exchange.
Yeah, which is surprising. Maybe he didn't think that Steve would make that line. He can kill everything.
Yeah, no, he can kill a bunch of stuff.
He can kill just everything.
Yep.
His Siege Rhino will die. But then but if he kills everything, he has an empty board, and Steve has an empty board, and then Steve's going to play Elspeth.
Yep.
They're like, that sounds awful.
It doesn't sound great.
Like, I get it. So Todd's like, okay, Rhino will, okay, this is cool. This is damage. So Rhino will fight Fleece Mane, force Steve to sacrifice Courser. So now Rhino's a 5 power, and it has no blockers remaining, so Steve will take 5.
Okay.
It's still not a good spot for Todd.
Nope.
Steve is yeah, Elspeth's really good against stops on aggro.
No, this is not a great situation.
Steve's plays fairly straightforward. He can play Elspeth, kill Siege Rhino, play a free land off the top. Leaves out with an empty board to his Elspeth.
He's going to start by playing Llanowar Way, so he's going to go up to 6. Let's see the next card, Urborg.
Yeah, there was some decision there. If he was going to go the Rhino play, he'd want to play the other Courser first.
Yeah.
So this shows a commitment to the Elspeth line.
It certainly feels that way. Yeah, there's her 6 mana. There's Elspeth. That's going to tick down. That'll take care of the Rhino. Here comes Courser. Todd needs a good draw, like, right now.
Yeah, and remember, the only haste threat you have to watch out for out of Abzan aggro is if you believe they're playing a copy of Surrak. And even then, that would take Surrak plus another creature out of Todd, which isn't unreasonable. Say if Todd's turn was like Lion, Surrak, kill Elspeth, that would be a pretty big
That's a really
coup.
good turn.
Yeah.
Yeah. And before Surrak was in this deck in some capacity, Brian Braun and Brad Nelson playing that deck at the Pro Tour.
Yeah, I believe the Jerry Thompson, Todd Anderson build for today does not run any copies of
no
Surrak.
Surraks in their 75. Now, Death Dealer isn't, the best draw in the world, but it's not terrible.
Well, the problem is that Elspeth tokens just render it useless here.
Well, absolutely. No question about that. I think right now, like, Death Dealer is a threat that you are okay with attacking with in case you draw Wingmate Rock. It's like attack, you block, or regenerate. Here's a Siege Rhino. Because the only way that Todd's winning out, he's got to draw either Hero's Downfall to kill Elspeth like right now or Wingmate Rock right now.
Exactly. And in the case that he draws either of those, Death Dealer is pretty good.
Because we get to see every card that Steve draws now. And we'll have to see the top card here from the Courser that he's got to turn over. And he's got Urborg, believe, in his hand at this point. But we get to see the top card of Llanowar Waste and pass the turn back. But it's got to be Wingmate Rock like this turn. That was a thought seize. That is not it. Yeah, and Todd knows that he's going to concede the game right away. Steve Mann going to win game number 1 here over Todd Anderson. Abzan control, up the game over Abzan aggro, off the power of Elspeth.
This is how you drew it up in the book for Abzan control. They traded at the first 4 turns, both players traded 3 cards with each other. Then Steve played a Courser, and he took damage for a while Courser got him a couple extra cards, and then he played Elspeth. And that is exactly what you want to do in the matchup. There's some interchangeable parts. Sometimes your Courser is a Tasigur. Your Elspeth's usually just an Elspeth. That's always how it works.
Typically just an Elspeth, typically hard for Todd to beat unless he finds Wingmate Rock, which he did not. He's going to go to the drawing board. You have to imagine he's going to bring in that other Wingmate Rock. He's got 2 Duress, 2 Self-Inflicted Wound, 2 Glare of Heresy, 2 Tasigur, 3 Hornet Nest, 2 Drown in Sorrow, an additional Wingmate Rock, and a singular Nissa World Waker. Outside of the Wingmate Rock, which is obviously coming in, what else do you like?
All right, well, other things you can do in this matchup, I really like the cheap removal he has access to. Self-Inflicted Wound is pretty good in this matchup. One thing that Todd can do is if he can get ahead on the board, having that cheap removal to help push damage is great. Self-Inflicted Wound is good for doing that. Glare of Heresy is not unreasonable, but it only does answer, well, it answers enough. It answers Fleecemane Lion, Siege Rhino, and Elspeth. So I imagine both wounds and both glares come in. Outside of that, you often see them going to some of these copies of Tasigur as well.
On the other side of things here for Steve, he's got a Dromoka's Commander, Read the Bones, a Crux of Fate, 3 Erishan Clerics, 2 Drown in Sorrow, 2 Duress, 2 Nissa World Wakers of his own, an Ugin, a Murderous Cut, and an Ultimate Price.
All right, well, this control deck becomes more of a control deck after board. Cards like Thoughtseize actually are not particularly good in this matchup. You just want kill spells. You want things that don't get blanked. So starting with a list, sometimes you can board, depending on their build, you can play Ultimate Price. Todd's is pretty heavy on gold cards, so probably not that. But I imagine we'll see the Murderous Cut. Dromoka's Command is reasonable here, but not great. The additional Read the Bones is good. The Crux of Fate is good. And that's about it in the matchup. You're pretty well positioned in the main deck, so it's only a few cards that change.
All right, well, these players have sideboarded. They'll start shuffling up for game number 2. We'll quickly talk about the Star City Games Spring Collection. Basically what we've done, we've taken the stuff from game night over the past handful of months. We've put it on sleeves, playmats, and dice bags.
Yeah, so you see that these are the ones from May, June, or April, May, and June. So you have the bee, the kitten, and the bunny. Those are the first 3 you see. And then also we have one from our parody series that comes out. We come out with one of those every 3 months. This one's pretty good. It's our legacy favorite. It's the Delver of Squeakrits, as you see there.
It's tough to say. I'm glad you said it because I normally screw it up. But all of these are available on card sleeves, playmats, and dice bags. StarCityGames.com/creature collection for more information about that as we do get ready for game number 2 here between Anderson and Mann. Anderson number 15 on our season 2 leaderboard, Mann number 18 on our season 2 leaderboard, which means Todd came in with 2 buys and Steve with 1. They're off to a great start here at 3-1, but one of them is going to be walking away with a loss, and that means they'll have no more losses to give today.
Interestingly, one thing about Steve's sideboard, just kind of want to point out, is you typically have not seen Read the Bones in the sideboard as their sweeper. They've gone to End Hostilities. By playing Read the Bones, it's a bit of a hedge against some of the like Esper Dragon style decks, so that they can't sit behind a dragon and blank your Siege Rhinos. You actually just crux on dragons.
Oh, that makes sense.
It's kind of cool.
That's creative.
When your matchup's bad, you got to get creative.
That's definitely true.
That's one of the ways to do it. You're like, oh, I'm boarding my sweeper against this control deck. But it can work.
Hey, whatever it takes, honestly. Death Dealer is how Todd's going to start things off. Steve's going to take a look at his hand. He's already got the Elspeth. There's a Courser. It looks like there are 2. Fleecemane Lion as well.
I believe he has kept in some number of his Thoughtseize.
He's going to cast one right now. Todd with a Death Dealer, a Self-Inflicted Wound, and a couple of lands. Urborg, Plains, and a Llanowar Waste. He's looking to draw spells here.
This is why the matchup can be really, one of the reasons that it can be tough from the Obs on aggro side. This is a hand you'd want to keep from Todd's side, but it's not particularly good. I imagine Steve will just take a Death Dealer out of it. He's okay trading his threats for Todd's removal.
There's another Thoughtseize. Steve's going to take a bunch.
Take everything.
Well, draw a good one, Todd. That's what Steve's saying.
Steve did 5 himself that turn.
Hey, he drew a good one. It's a Siege Rhino. Yep, pump, bash.
But all it takes is a Courser, which I believe Steve has, and suddenly it becomes really clear what the game plan is. You see Elspeth in his hand, Courser's in his hand.
Just get to turn 6.
Those were the key cards. You Courser you Courser and removal spell your way up to Elspeth.
Steve's going to sacrifice his Windswept Heath. He's down to 10. There's your Courser.
Doing that to prevent future damage off his lands. Okay, no, he went and got the planes.
He got planes,
all right,
yeah.
he got planes.
I mean, it's turn 4, and it's his turn 3. We're going to Todd's turn 4. Steven at 9. And Todd has a Siege Rhino in his hand.
It's a concern, but not a huge one. There's a Hero's Downfall on top of Steve's deck.
Todd drew a land for the turn and Llanowar Waste.
Your concern from Steve is that if in these intermediate turns, if Todd draws a Wingmate Rock, that's how you lose.
Absolutely.
You're not going to actually lose to the Death Dealer. It's going to be really obnoxious, but it's not going to kill you. The Wingmate Rock will definitely kill you, though.
Man is down to 4. Top card of the deck. It's a copy of Llanowar Waste.
It's an untapped land. That's going to be hard to pass up. But then again, would have to use black mana off it to cast Downfall.
He is so low.
This is one of the things I'm not a huge fan of Thoughtseize in the matchup. It's such a powerful card that it is hard to say no to.
It definitely had an impact on the game. It's hard to say how much.
Well, if he had just played other threats, then they would have traded with Todd's cards. So eventually we traded 2 cards for 2 cards, but all of Steve's cards do that. So you board in Thoughtseize if you're worried that Todd will play all his cards faster than you can or something like that. You can take it is one of your ways to catch a Wingmate Rock. So I guess if I know my opponent's on a 4 Wingmate Rock version of Obs on aggro, I'm much more excited about playing Thoughtseize post board because I really want to Thoughtseize that card.
I give Mann credit for knowing that they have 4 post board.
Okay, I'll take it back. I'm behind the Thoughtseizes now.
Steve's in the old tank here. Might be a Courser.
Even then, you don't. The problem is when you end up Thoughtseizing something that's not Wingmate Rock, it's questionable how good of an exchange that was for you.
Man had to take 1 to cast. He's down to 3, up to 5. Top card, Urborg.
Urborg's huge. That means he'll have to stop using those he can stop using Llanowar Wastes to cast his black spells. That's good.
It's another land there for Anderson. Todd's going to play his Urborg, which means he can double pump his Death Dealer. He's coming in the red zone, both of these.
Yeah, you double block the Death Dealer. Make Todd spend all his mana. It's fine. You're willing to throw away a Courser for that.
Yeah, pump regen.
Yep. Steve is happy with this.
As happy as you can be being at 1 life.
One's not 0. I mean, if Todd has another Siege Rhino, you're going to die.
Now, Todd's only got lands in his hand. He's got some good draws. He doesn't feel confident, but he's going to pass the turn back over to Mann, who's going to draw his Urborg.
A self-inflicted wound kills you also.
Yep. There's some bad news here. I was on terms of... It's okay.
No. I was on terms good. You can downfall the Death Dealer right now, then you could charm away the Rhino, and then you make your way to Elspeth. Okay. And you just hope something doesn't go wrong in the meantime. It's a kill spell. You want, if you are disappointed in drawing a 3-mana kill spell in this matchup, then something, that's how the matchup works. The 3-mana kill spells that's your bread and butter.
Until you get to your 6-mana win the game spell.
Right. I mean, their creatures usually cost 3. Sometimes they cost 2, but...
I don't like this new version of you, knowing everything about Obs on Control. I don't like this, Matthias.
What?
I just don't.
It's a kill. See, but the thing I'm talking about is I'm lining up my kill spells with your creatures. That makes sense.
I like blue card or high tide, Matthias. I don't like cast the Siege Rhino, Hero's Downfall, Obs on chart.
I mean, I would not be opposed to cutting Siege Rhinos from Obs on Control if they weren't, that function of card. If there wasn't this stupidly overpowerful, really powerful 4-drop, I would just cut that kind of card. I'd just play some Coursers and some kill spells, and then that'd be it.
How'd Todd do? Another land. It's a temple. Not the worst land. He's going to attack. I have to imagine we're getting a double block, yeah, immediately.
Oh, yeah. Trading 1 for 1, sure. It's great.
Kill Courser, probably?
Yes. I mean, this is a bad spot. You kill Courser so that you preserve self-inflicted wound as an out.
Todd left this card on top real fast, by the way.
Yeah, if it's Siege Rhino, Steve's dead.
Yep.
If it's self-inflicted wound, Steve's dead, because even though he has a Courser in his hand, he'd have to pay 1 to play it. I mean, if I'm in Steve's spot, I look at Todd's body language from that scry, and then I look at my hand and be like, well, darn.
I would think I'm
like, this is really bad.
Yeah.
What else would have he possibly kept? Okay, he would have kept Tasigur if Tasigur was on top. Because, right? Tasigur is good enough here.
I mean, maybe. Like, I guess he can play Tasigur, but he has to delve away his whole graveyard, and then I guess he gets a card back. So, yeah, Tasigur's probably good enough.
Tasigur's probably a keep.
Siege Rhino's on top of his deck. Yeah, Todd is pointing to his deck. I would bet my entire life it's a Siege Rhino. Yes,
yep,
sir.
There you go.
There we go.
You shouldn't bet your entire life. It could have been a self-inflicted wound. And then you'd look really silly. -1 life.
Todd Anderson's going to win game number 2 here over Steve Mann, thanks to a Siege Rhino kept on top from a temple. We'll play a third one here in just a moment.
And that's one of the ways that you do lose this matchup. I mean, it helps that Todd's on the play there, is that Steve, his plan of trading and making his way to Elspeth was working, but he just lost too many life points along the way. It's the kind of situation that if Steve had started the game at 25, this would have worked.
Sure.
And that can happen. Todd's creatures are really large, so when you fall behind a little bit on your kill spells, it just costs you life points each time. You almost always have the time to catch up, but you just run out of life points to work with.
Yeah, no, those things, those creatures they're gigantic. That's part of the appeal of this deck, is the creatures are just so gosh darn big, and that's why I like this deck, is they're big, they're good early, they're good late.
It's rare. So one of the issues with aggro decks usually is that as you get into the late game, your cards, like, the advantage of an aggro deck is that you get to play your cards very efficiently. The disadvantage is that pound for pound, your cards aren't as powerful, so you start to get outclassed in the late game. I think why Abs on aggro is so powerful is you get to have both of those. Yep. So you get to have this curve out strength, but your cards don't really get bad in the late game. Maybe your downside is, I guess, that your mana's pretty awkward, it deals some damage to you, but it's an aggro deck with a surprising amount of power in late game.
Yeah, that's why I like it. It's my kind of aggro deck. Game number 3 going to be underway here in just a moment. Between these two, we will talk very quickly about the regional championships that will be taking place here for Star City Games. It's been a successful program thanks to you guys playing in it, so we're able to continue to do it. On August 1st, we'll have more details for you guys, but this is the important detail, the playmat.
Yeah, so this is a parody of the Ellen DeGeneres Oscars photo.
Yes.
For those of you who are not pop culture savvy, I didn't know that until I heard that. I can't tell you which actor each of them are, but it is our creature series, our game night creatures, our Star City parody collection. You see Eternal Witness has showed up to the party, Kitten Token, just all of them. They're all here on the playmat. Remember, these happen on the weekends of the Pro Tours, so this is going to be our regional championships. They're taking place on August 1st. We'll have more details about that to come on starcitygames.com/regionals.
So all we know is that we've got a sweet playmat for you guys, and as Matthias said, more details to come down the line. August 1st, get ready for that tournament over the summer as we get ready here for game number 3 between Steve Mann and Todd Anderson. And Mann's going to be on the play. Great place to be in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very defensive great place to be. What it means is that the danger is that they pace their creature. Their creature curve starts on 2, and your removals curve does not always start on 2. So when their creature curve is starting on 2 and your removals start on 3 and you're on the draw, those are the danger spots.
And that's what we saw the last game.
That's exactly what we saw. And even then, you saw, like, eventually Steve did get control of it. Todd's more mana efficient, but Steve gets time to catch up. He just lost too much life while doing it.
Well, we will see what happens here. Both players will be drawing their opening hands in just a moment. However, if you are just joining us, Cedar Phillips, Matthias Hunt, Ken Crocker in the sideboard, along with the rest of the SCG Live crew. We're round number 5 here from Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, at SCG Live. Hashtag SCGDFW for your tweets all weekend long. We've got our social media devices in front of us, so if you want to interact, feel free, as Mann's going to take a mulligan here. And we'll see what Anderson wants to do.
Well, Todd has a Wingmate Rock. That's good.
Finally.
Yeah, he hasn't seen one of them yet.
Yeah, we've got 4 of those things in his deck. It looks like he's going to keep. He's happy enough, so let's see what Steve is going to do when he takes a look at his 6 cards in just a moment. Forget, Mann, number 18 on our Season 2 leaderboard. He's from Florida, made the trip out here, looking to get some Open Series points. We saw him in the Players' Championship last year, made day 2 of that tournament. Very impressive run for him. For Anderson, did not qualify for the Players' Championship last year, came up a little bit short. You might see him there this year, though. And he had 2 buys coming in due to being number 15 on our Open Series leaderboard. 2 very, very accomplished players here in the Open Series. So always love to get to see when these players who are near the top leaderboard get to battle each other. It's a lot of fun. Steve is going to 5 now.
I believe he had just a 1 land hand there. Can still win on 5. Will probably need something like a Courser.
Yeah, I think now it revolves around Courser. Read the Bones, Abzan Charm, stuff like that. Maybe Todd getting a slow start out of the gates by not having a 2-drop. I think those are the things it's going to revolve around now at this point. Courser going to undo a lot of the mulligans if he's able to find one.
Yeah, Todd doesn't have a huge number of ways to remove it. He has some Jamoka's commands and downfalls, playing 3 and 2 respectively.
Courser's place in the metagame is so interesting to me because Jamoka's command is so good against it, but Courser is still just such a powerful card. I mean, you still have to play in a deck like this. There's no way you're not going to. Now we'll take a look at 5 cards. He keeps very quickly. Sandstep Citadel, we're underway here in game number 3.
His hand is pretty reasonable. Has a land, believe it, yeah, it has at least 2 lands. One of them was Sandstep Citadel. That's great.
Yeah, this hand's just good. I mean, it's 5 cards. That's the only downside, but he's got a Siege Rhino, an Abzan Charm, I believe a Den Protector too.
Yeah, Windswept Heath, so he has the 3rd land.
Yeah, his hand is just good. Now, Todd does have a play on turn 2, as he's going to go down to 19. It's a Fleecemane Lion, so that's important there for Anderson to get the ball rolling as Mann will take a draw.
The question will be whether or not Steve can keep Todd off that Wingmate Rocks raid. Because Steve is low on cards, he doesn't have other kill spells to deal with the Fleecemane Lion, so he probably won't have the flexibility to draw 2 with an Abzan Charm, and that will come back to get him.
Steve going to sacrifice his Windswept Heath right now. What's interesting to me is, on this particular turn, are you supposed to just Abzan Charm and kill that Fleecemane Lion?
Well, he doesn't have another great option, so yes, I would think so.
I don't know if he has any interest in maybe playing a face-down Den Protector to get that stage of the game out of the way, or anything like that.
I think keeping it simple is good. You can go with this play. You want to make this play because next turn you're pretty committed into playing Siege Rhino, and maybe by that point you'll have enough mana to play Den Protector and flip it up on turn 5. So you want to play it now just because there's not going to be a good window for a while to play that Abzan Charm.
Death Dealer there for Anderson.
2 Wingmate Rocks for Todd.
And he drew 1 this turn.
2 Wingmate Rocks, Abzan Charm, Hero's Downfall, and land 4.
Mann will draw. It's another land. It's Windswept Heath. He's going to sacrifice that. We might see the Siege Rhino come down now. Hey, he's playing Magic, and that's really all you can ask for.
Yeah, I actually have felt like the players are switching roles here right now. Steve actually needs to be the aggressive player because of his inability to deal with Wingmate Rocks.
There's the Rhino. Steve will gain some life back. Anderson will lose 3. He's down to 16. Mann's up to 21.
Whereas Todd with an Abzan Charm and a Downfall, he's going to be the player killing the creatures. Yeah. Huge.
Yeah, there's Downfall. There's the attack. The Sandstep Citadel's a pretty nice land to have.
And this is going to be really tough for Steve. That draw was great for Todd. So now next turn, Todd will just get to start raiding Wingmates. And that is tough. Now remember, Steve does have a Crux of Fate in his sideboard. It's not in his hand as of yet.
It's got double black now thanks to that Caves of Koilos. This will be a Den Protector face down. The ability to return Siege Rhino or Abzan Charm. Pass that turn back.
Right, so with more cards, what Steve... Like, imagine this board without the Death Dealer on it. With more cards, Steve probably would have had a kill spell for it. I think that's where the mulligan has hurt him. Yep. Without Death Dealer, Todd's hand is significantly worse. It has a lot less Wingmate Rock in it.
You see Todd immediately attack. From our side, that's predictable. You know, we know that Todd has a Wingmate Rock and a 5th land untapped. I was curious if Steve was going to block or not. He isn't. He'll take the 2. You don't think so?
Todd will just pump, and then where is he?
Or he might not pump and just say, okay, we'll trade creatures and I'll play Wingmate Rock. It's probably just both are bad.
I mean, you're not beating the Wingmate Rock on Steve's side anyway.
There's Den Protector. It's going to unflip, unmegamorph, as it were. We'll see if he wants to return if it's Siege Rhino or Abzan Charm.
Remember, though, Crux of Fate still exists. If Steve can draw it this turn, it's just huge.
Do you think maybe he plays towards something like get back Abzan Charm, try to dig into Crux of Fate?
I don't know if digging into Crux of Fate is fast enough. You might just to get back Siege Rhino and say, I sure hope I draw Crux of Fate.
Okay.
If you're digging into Abzan Charm into Crux, you might be dead. He's going to get it. I mean, it makes sense. Abzan Charm's very good in this matchup.
Drew a copy of Thoughtseize.
That's not bad. I mean, it's not great, but it does mean that if he fires it off, that means he dodges the second Wingmate Rock.
Yeah, it's like a weird spot to cast Thoughtseize, but given that you and I and everyone watching knows Todd's hand, you might want to fire off that Thoughtseize to get that other Wingmate Rock.
Todd's hand's real good is the issue. He has a Temple, Abzan Charm, and another Wingmate.
Yep. His hand's great. Maybe you start with Abzan Charm, draw 2, get some info.
So if you're doing that, in order to cast that, you're going to go down to 15. You're taking at least 6. You're going to bring yourself closer to 9. You're going to go to 6 if you Thoughtseize afterward. You still might do it. You just have to hit Crux. If he's boarded in Ugin would work, but there's no way he makes it to Ugin alive.
Yeah. There's Charm. He's going to go down to 15.
Yep.
Peel 2.
There, I believe he hit.
Yep, he found Crux.
That is a 1-of. Sorry, it's 2-of. He has 1 in the main, the second one in the board.
This gets interesting now if he casts Thoughtseize. Like, you have to do whatever it takes to get Todd, basically to make him cardless, or to cast the other Wingmate Rock in his hand. Like, whatever you can do to flush him out. Now, here's the hand. Wingmate Rock, Abzan Charm, Temple of Silence.
So it'll be interesting. You may, if you take Wingmate Rock, then you're going to have to block next turn with the Den Protector. He'll regenerate, and then Abzan Charm. You're behind. The question is if you think you can win a fair game. You maybe hope that Todd overcommits with second Wingmate Rock, but that's really unlikely.
But
I like his play.
I think it's unlikely he overcommits with second Wingmate Rock, but I do think it's likely that, like, if you take the Abzan Charm, you can just beat the single Wingmate Rock. Because it's not bringing a 3/4 with it.
The issue is that the Death Dealer is still going to be alive.
That's
after
true.
Crux, so it will bring a 3/4 with it.
Yep, that's true. There's your block. There's a regenerate.
Yeah, and Todd has enough mana that he gets to hold this up and have the Abzan Charm.
And Todd actually has enough mana right now where he can regenerate Death Dealer after Crux and then just kill him.
Right, Crux doesn't even save Steve anymore. If Steve has Crux into Tasigur, he gets to survive.
There's a combination of cards. There's a Sandsep Citadel.
Then again, he doesn't play Tasigur.
So that's not an out.
No, I think once he's added Den Protector, you don't have room for both of those two.
Yeah, that makes sense, actually. Yep, and he's going to extend the hand. Todd Anderson's going to win this game and match here over Steve Mann. 2-1. Abzan Aggro is going to sneak by Abzan Control. It's a tough matchup for Todd, but an untimely mulligan to 5 there for Mann is going to help Anderson get this one and move on to 4-1.
Yeah, and really a great hand from Todd, too. Wingmate Rock was one of Todd's keys there, and having it in multiples is really good.
I mean, you see exactly how powerful the card is in the matchup, and we highlighted it right at the top as a way for Todd to actually maybe to steal a game, or that's his game plan that he's going to build around. And there, it's just, okay, I got a Wingmate Rock. Elspeth is not going to solve this problem. You need to have a card like Crux of Fate. It didn't show up in time, and Todd's able to win the match because of it.
Yeah, well, congratulations to Todd.
4-1 now, off to a nice start here, making his trip certainly worth it. Steve Mann down to 3-2, so one half of the Florida contingent off to a bad start here, but